Stop right there. Put aside everything you think you know about the history of firearms. Because the story we're about to dive into isn't just about steel and gunpowder. This is a tale of audacity, of a young, wounded sergeant with a dream, staring down the giants of Soviet weapons design. It's the secret prequel to a global legend, a project that was buried in archives, but whose DNA now lives in the hands of millions. If you believe that success is a straight line, prepare to have your mind changed. This is the story of near-catastrophic failure, relentless grit, and how the greatest comeback in weapons history began with a humiliating no. Stick with me until the very end. I promise the final twist and the lesson it holds are worth it. And when we're done, I want to hear your verdict in the comments. Was this a waste of time, or the most crucial training ground for a genius? Subscribe to the channel if you live for these deep dive investigations into forgotten history. Your support is what fuels these stories. Now let's rewind the clock to a world at war. The crucible of war, a historical and economic snapshot. To grasp the sheer scale of Mikhail Kalashnikov's ambition, you have to feel the air of that era. The world was on fire. The Great Patriotic War raged, and the very nature of infantry combat was being rewritten in blood and mud. The long, powerful rifles of the past, like the legendary Mosin, were showing their age in a new war of rapid maneuvers and close-quarters hell. Military thinkers worldwide saw the future. They needed a new breed of weapon, something more compact and faster-firing than a rifle, but with more reach and punch than a submachine gun. The answer lay in a new cartridge, a middle ground, the intermediate cartridge. Here's the pivotal moment, a piece of history often overlooked. In August of 1943, in the midst of the war's turning tide, the Red Army's main artillery directorate, GAU, made a monumental decision. They approved tactical and technical requirements for an entire family of weapons built around a revolutionary new round, the 7.62 by 39mm cartridge. This wasn't just a new bullet. It was the seed for a whole new combat system. The plan called for 3 pillars: a light machine gun, an automatic rifle, what we'd call an assault rifle, and, pay close attention, a self-loading carbine. Why a carbine? The military logic of the time was clear. Not every soldier needed a full-auto assault rifle. Artillery crews, drivers, engineers, and headquarters staff needed a lighter, handier weapon than a long rifle for defense, but something more substantial than a pistol. It was a logical niche, and to fill it, the Soviet Union called upon its best and brightest engineering minds. The established king versus the unknown challenger. Spring 1944. April 1944. The first tests of the new carbine designs are held. The victor, as expected, is the established maestro of self-loading systems, Sergei Gavrilovich Semenov. By this time, Semenov was a titan. His resume included the AVS-36 rifle and the iconic PTRS anti-tank rifle. He was a veteran with over 15 years of experience in this exact field. 2 of the 3 carbines submitted were his. But here's the fascinating twist that gets lost in most tellings. Even Semenov's creations failed the tests. Yes, they performed better than the others. They were closer to the requirements in weight and size. But they were not ready. The commission's verdict was simply to recommend further refinement. The race was still wide open. The throne was empty. And then, from the sidelines, steps forward a man who, by all accounts, had no business being in that race. Mikhail Timofeyevich Kalashnikov, a senior sergeant, a former tank commander, severely wounded in battle, a self-taught tinkerer whose only notable creations were a prototype submachine gun and a tank engine life counter. Compared to Semenov's legacy, his portfolio was a child's sketch next to a blueprint skyscraper. Yet he decided to compete. On his own initiative, he only sought and received official permission later. What on earth was he thinking? This is the moment I find endlessly compelling. What drives a person to step into an arena where the champion is so clearly defined? Was it naive ambition? Unshakable self-belief? Or was it the unique courage of the outsider, unburdened by the weight of reputation and the way things have always been done? I believe it was the latter. That freedom allowed him to look beyond the Soviet design schools and find inspiration in an unexpected place. The 1944 carbine, borrowing from the best to beat the rest. By the end of October 1944, Kalashnikov had his plan. And he did something brilliantly pragmatic. He didn't start from a blank page. He took one of the most celebrated infantry weapons of World War II, the American M1 Garand rifle, and used it as his foundation. Crucially, Kalashnikov himself never hid this fact. This is a key lesson. True innovators aren't afraid to adopt brilliant solutions. They adapt, improve, and weave them into something new. What did he take from the Garand? The locking system, a rotating bolt with 2 locking lugs. The feeding system, cartridges loaded via an N-block clip that ejected upward when empty. The safety, mounted inside the trigger guard. The stock attachment. But this was no mere copy. Kalashnikov's mind was already working as a master optimizer. For instance, he placed the bolt's rotating cam on top, making the entire assembly more compact. He achieved a better weight ratio between the bolt carrier and the bolt itself than the Garand had, directly boosting potential reliability. And while it used a clip, the actual feeding mechanism was his own original design. A now iconic Kalashnikov feature appeared. The charging handle was on the left side, perhaps for ergonomics for a right-handed shooter. He would stick with this layout for a long time. The project was completed with astonishing speed by mid-February 1945. The relentless work ethic that would define him was already evident. The carbine had a folding spike bayonet and a solid weight of over 4 kilograms. Testing began in August of 1945, in a world now at peace. And here, the story takes a painfully dramatic turn. A devastating failure and the lesson that forged a legend. The carbine fired over 11,000 rounds. The results? Disappointing. Its malfunction rate was above the strict requirement. The parts showed poor service life. 9 parts broke when no more than 3 were allowed. But the most memorable moment came from not a statistic, but from a general's raw, practical anger. The head of the GAU's procurement department, Major General Dubovitsky, personally test-fired the weapon. After the last shot, when the empty clip flew out into the grass with a ping, he didn't discuss ballistics. He got down on his knees and started looking for it. To puzzled remarks that the clip was empty and useless, the general delivered a legendary rebuke. The soldier doesn't know that. He'll see something fly out and will crawl around looking for it, thinking a vital part has fallen off. This was a verdict not just on a mechanism, but on an entire philosophy. A weapon must not only be effective but also intuitively understandable. It must not confuse or panic a stressed, tired soldier in combat. The official report was brutal. The carbine did not meet requirements, lost to Semenov's design, and any refinement would require a radical redesign, leading, in essence, to a new carbine. Game over? It should have been. But not for Kalashnikov. This wasn't an ending. It was the single most valuable lesson of his career. A lesson in user-centric, brutal reliability that would become his hallmark. Rising from the ashes. The 1946 carbine. This is where we see the character of the future legend. Instead of giving up, he did exactly what the report ordered. He completely redesigned the weapon. And he did it while simultaneously working on his first assault rifle prototype. Can you imagine the workload? By the summer of 1946, a new version was ready. It was a different beast. Kalashnikov addressed every flaw. He reinforced critical components. He ditched the problematic Garand-style clip for a conventional stripper clip, similar to what would later be used in the SKS. A wise retreat. He redesigned the trigger group, even receiving a secret inventor's certificate for it. The weapon became lighter, shorter, and had fewer parts. The tests showed he was hitting the benchmarks. Reliability in adverse conditions was good. Service life exceeded requirements. In accuracy, it now matched Semenov's carbine. It seemed like victory was finally in reach. But once again, a but emerged. Parts breakages were still an issue. The ghost of the flying clip and the general skepticism cast a long shadow. And most crucially, Semenov had a colossal head start. This carbine didn't go into production. but its importance cannot be overstated, because it became the vital bridge. Its refined gas system and locking mechanism directly evolved into the first experimental assault rifles, known as the AK-46 and AK-47. The failed carbine was, in fact, the direct prototype for the early AKs. The final, bitter act and the triumph of the system, 1948. The most poignant and revealing chapter came in 1948. Kalashnikov, now in Izhevsk overseeing the production of his soon-to-be victorious AK-47, returned to the carbine one last time. He couldn't leave the work unfinished. On the factory floor, between crises with the assault rifle, he built two final, perfected samples, incorporating all the lessons from the AK's development. It was, by all accounts, a masterpiece. It featured the simpler AK trigger, improved springs, a dust cover latch, countless refined details. In November of 1948, this carbine was tested head-to-head against the nearly production-ready Semenov carbine, the SKS. The result? Kalashnikov's design was found to be more refined and reliable. And here we meet the cold, hard logic of the state-industrial machine. The decision to adopt the SKS had already been made. The massive manufacturing machinery in Tula was already being tooled for it. To halt that colossal effort for an alternative model, even a superior one, was deemed impractical. Kalashnikov was politely, firmly denied. He later recalled with bitterness that the commission acknowledged his carbine was not inferior, and even had some advantages, but the train had already left the station. The economics of victory. Why the SKS won the battle but the AK won the war? Let's analyze this through a modern lens of economics and logistics. The late 1940s. A country lies in ruins. The task is to re-equip the world's largest army, and to do it quickly and cheaply. By 1948, Semenov had a mature, production-ready design. His SKS was simpler to manufacture than Kalashnikov's early carbines and could use existing tooling. Launching it promised immediate results. Kalashnikov in 1948 was focused on the main event, the assault rifle. His carbine, even if better, was a side project. The state needed a complete system: a machine gun, the RPD, an assault rifle, the AK, and a carbine, the SKS. Diverting the focus of their breakthrough designer from the central, revolutionary weapon to a secondary one made no strategic sense. Here's the ultimate irony of history. The SKS, though adopted, had a brief heyday. It was quickly supplanted in frontline service by none other than the Kalashnikov assault rifle, which proved to be more versatile. The tactical niche for a self-loading infantry carbine simply vanished. Meanwhile, the locking system Kalashnikov had painstakingly perfected on those very same failed carbines conquered the world inside the AK. Final reflections. The forge of genius. So what was this entire saga? A failure? Absolutely not. It was the ultimate training ground. Think about it. An unknown designer challenges the establishment. He boldly borrows the best foreign ideas, suffers a crushing public defeat, and endures harsh, humiliating criticism from the top brass. But he doesn't break. He absorbs every single lesson. He reworks his design from the ground up. He loses the bureaucratic race due to timing. And from this crucible of failure and relentless iteration, he forges the core principles that would define the world's most reliable firearm. This isn't a story about a weapon. It's a story about the path. It's about how talent, multiplied by insane perseverance and the ability to learn from your own and others' mistakes, gives birth to a legend. Kalashnikov didn't win the carbine competition. He took something far more valuable from it: understanding. And that understanding gifted the world the AK. Now it's your turn. What's your take? Could Kalashnikov's carbine, if pushed into production in 1948, have truly rivaled the SKS? Or did fate steer things perfectly, focusing the genius on his true destiny? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get a debate going. And if you want more deep dives into the hidden stories behind the machines that shaped our world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Your like and subscription is the best way to tell me this kind of in-depth history matters. Until the next forgotten tale.